We are here for a sketchbook tour. Hi, I'm Madhu. I'm a watercolor artist, and I'm excited to share with you my sketchbook from the year 2021 to 23. I just finished it. I still have some of my paintings that I haven't posted yet, so it's really nice to look back at my sketchbook and just see where and how my art has grown. This sketchbook has a lot of my watercolors as well as a lot of my Karen marker brush pens. I was experimenting a lot last year with that style. So you're going to see a lot of that, and I'm excited to kind of share details with you. I like that the sketchbook lies completely flat, which is great. You can even do one layout, which is really fun. I didn't play with that much, but I think that's definitely an idea to keep in mind. I have tried different techniques. You can see on the left, I've played around with gouache, and on the right, these are with brush stamping, my favorite technique for florals. I was playing around with proportions a lot as well. Here we again have gouache. I felt like this was too busy. It was in preparation for a Skillshare class, but I didn't like the full effect of it, so I finally didn't pursue this. Then we go forward. I love the piece to the left. It actually inspired me to paint a lot more of this style, so you will see that recurring, and this is with brush pens. And the lines are so crisp, the watercolor look is beautiful, and I really enjoyed that part. It's kind of interesting for me to look back at the sketchbook and see some of the pieces that I've forgotten, like these individual pieces. They were kind of a trial. I was testing out different color schemes. They're very similar, but I was trying out different colors that would work with red. And also with the leaves, you can see some of them, the leaves are bigger, smaller, so I was playing around with placements a lot. This section is completely gouache. Looking at a different color scheme, so the yellow, light blue, and pink color scheme, this whole page created panels so I can experiment more. I really love how that turned out. I don't think I posted it anywhere. It was just for me to test and practice. So yeah, you won't see it in any of my reels or anything like that. Here, more of brush pens. What I wanted to do at that point of time is to play around with different flowers using brush pens. So you have lavenders, poppies. I tried it out. I liked the overall look, and that's when this part came in, which was a bouquet as well as this page. So the bouquet and the other page are all brush pens, and I was again thinking of doing it for a Skillshare class. So I do have a full-fledged Skillshare class that I launched using these techniques, but I didn't continue to do more because I felt like this is something that people need to purchase specifically to take the class. It's not as friendly as watercolors. So I just kind of scrapped that entire idea. But I experimented a lot with brush pens, and I really liked how it was looking, and I really liked kind of playing around with it. You can see a little bit of my style. It has been changing over time, to be honest, and that's kind of interesting as I compare my previous sketchbook to this one. We have a little bit more of gouache. I had an empty page, so I wanted to paint out something for you guys while we're just going through my sketchbook. It was just taking inspiration for my book. I had launched my book in 2021, so was really inspired by painting out different birds. Bullfinch was definitely one of them that was high up, just because of the colors and so beautiful. So let's kind of paint out this page and play around with it. It's the last page that I have kind of that's empty in the sketchbook. So we can finish that up and then the book is over for 2023. I also want to maintain the same style because I've noticed if I keep my sketchbook for a long time and I revisit it after, let's say, a year, I've noticed my style changes so much. So it's kind of nice to actually continue and finish off my sketchbook if it's just a page that is incomplete. While I'm doing this, I also wanted to kind of share my story, my watercolor journey back when I first started. So I've been painting with watercolors actually for a very long time. I used to draw a lot when I was a child, and I got into watercolors when I was I think in my early 20s. It was part of my college assignments. And it was just something I did when I was free. And I'm sure all of you have gone through this where it's hard to make time for art. So you really need to be very intentional. And so I had promised myself back in 2018, I think, where I was like, I'm going to post on Instagram to keep myself accountable and to really pursue this and to really build a volume of work just for myself. Because at that time, I was going through a lot. I was in between trying to figure out if I wanted to go for further studies or if I wanted to work. I was in the fashion field, so I didn't know if I want to continue doing that. I was very lost, and art kind of became this goal that I had. So every time I was free, I would paint, and that would relax me to finally kind of make a decision. So what interestingly happened is when I started my Instagram, it was such a quick growth. I almost immediately started doing really well with Instagram. I was getting a lot of comments and feedback, and it was really great to see the response from the community. And Instagram was definitely so helpful and just so, I see it as like a very supportive friend who would just talk about you to everyone, because my art was spread around very quickly and I was very happy about that. And I was still working my 9 to 5 at that point of time while I was making all these decisions. What interestingly happened is I started having outlets for me to make or earn money. So people would approach me saying, do you teach art? Or can you teach this specific technique? Or, questions like this. And so I launched, I think, my Skillshare class. This was 2018. And the response was amazing. And then over that, I also launched my own separate individual course. It was a 6-week course on florals. And from there, it was just a very natural flow into becoming a full-time artist. So I get this question a lot of how did you become a full-time artist? And for me, it wasn't necessarily a decision I made. It was more of, I would love for this to become a career, and I will only do this when I'm stable enough to pursue it. So I really made sure that I had a savings. So I had worked for a really long time before then. So I did make sure I have savings, make sure that my everyday needs would be met. And I also had this intention of making sure that I had at least 6 months of income savings, or at least a year. I think I had done a year. So art is a very, like any other business, any other freelance business, it is kind of up and down. Once you stabilize, it is great, but there might be a time where you're sick, or there might be something that comes up unexpected where you can't work. And I didn't want to have that stress of, oh my God, I have no money this month, I'm going to really struggle with it, and kind of force myself to create art just for that, or take on projects that I didn't want to because I didn't have the money. So I didn't want the finances to be such a burden on me. So I had made sure that I actually had savings for at least a year to sustain, irrespective. And there was a point in time where my salary was the same as my art income. And that's when the decision became so clear. It was during COVID, and I was kind of, asking for a promotion in my company. Even though it was COVID, my workload had increased massively. And so I'd gone up to my boss and I was like, can I get an increase? And she was very honest. She said, in this situation, probably not. We're going to hope it gets better. And I think that was when I decided, I was like, okay, doing my art, I'm making, that is basically when I would do it, is over the weekends, and I was making the same as my salary. And my full-time job was really draining me at that point. And that's when I decided to move into my own business, become self-employed. So it was a very natural movement, but I did put in the hard work. I did put in a lot of work in terms of getting there to make sure that I was stable enough and I was calm enough to make that move. Because I get this question a lot, and I understand, because you see a lot of artists who are doing really well, and it's a dream for everyone. It was a dream for me when I was in my college. I was like, that would be so cool if I could be a self-employed artist and just really do what I love and I'm so passionate about and sustain myself. And yes, it is possible, but I think it's just good to be a little bit smart about it so you don't stress yourself out and you give yourself ample time to build that work. So there you go. I love that page. Now that we've completed it, let's move on. Look at that. I did a little bit of palette knife painting on the left side. There was a painting there I didn't like, so I just tried a little bit of palette knife. I like how palette knife gives texture, and I was experimenting this a little bit with gouache to see if it still gives that look. I like the texture, but I don't know if this is something I would pursue in the future, but that's where the sketchbook comes in. It's just to have fun and experiment. Going into our next painting, I think it was another bird that I had done before. Yes, it's the toucan. I don't know how to pronounce it, but a little bit of negative painting there. This again was inspired by my book. It was for one of the reels that I was going to post. A lot of brush pens. You can see again on the right. It's funny to look at it now, but basically it was again another experimentation with brush pens, and I had actually painted in some smaller flowers and stuck them on top to give it 3 dimension. I really like how that looked. I think it would make cute greeting cards. Maybe I would consider posting them on YouTube because I don't think they're strong enough for a full Skillshare class, but maybe it could go on YouTube. What do you guys think? Do you think it's something you would like to learn? Just playing around with brush pens? I'm not sure. I really love how that turned out. And I try to keep my sketchbooks just on trend, like as in keep the same theme throughout. Not intentionally, but it helps me make it less stressful in terms of coming up with ideas. Now the next one, I was playing around with masking tape, just trying to see how I can create those negative painting spaces. We have another section of, I think this one is potted plants. Yes, I really like the potted plants. I was trying out different color combinations. Some of them I like, some of them not so much. The gouache landscape looks so beautiful. And now that I see it, I might take it on as a project for Skillshare. I think that would be so pretty. I think that, yeah, just that theme of mystical mountains, I think that could work really well. The floral on the right, it's what inspired my free 5-day challenge that's on my YouTube. It's called Beginner Florals. It's a 5-day free challenge where we paint with watercolors, and this is the piece that actually inspired it because I tried it out. I love this piece. I had posted it as a reel on my Instagram, and I really liked the response, and I created a whole class, a whole 5-day challenge around that. So that's really, really fun. Here we have more loose florals, again playing around with different color combinations and playing around with different techniques as well. We have an Easter inspired artwork. I like that, how that is with masking fluid for the white areas, some desserts. So this I've actually scanned to create prints, and the theme is around desserts for tea towels and things like that. So I love that. And then the final page, I was doing a little bit of experimentation with decoupage, and I like that. So this is my sketchbook from 2022. I hope you enjoyed it. Drop in your thoughts, your comments below. I'd love to read them.